Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, I guess, depending on where you're joining us from. Thank you so much to everyone for taking the time to join us today. This will be the first of a series of different information sessions that will be on the changes to the PR reporting process for 2024 and beyond. This one specifically focusing on pulse checks. So my name's Emily Hatt. I work at the Global Fund and the Operational Efficiency team, and I'll be taking you through the presentation today along with a few of my colleagues. The first being Sumiat, if you want to come in and introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Emily. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. My name is Sumiat Tinang, and I'm also working in the operational efficiency here at the Global Fund. Nice to meet you all, and thank you for joining us today. Over to you, Darius.
Me?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Darius Highwarn. I'm also on the operational efficiency team and really excited to share this content with you. I'll be coming in at the end after Emily and Sumiat for the FAQ. So please put your questions in the chat. We'll be gathering them throughout the presentation, and then we'll try our very best at the end to answer all your questions. Thanks so much for your participation.
Perfect. Thank you, Darius. Oh, I see. I think a few people are unmuted. If we could just make sure everyone's muted so we can have no background noise. Perfect. Thank you. So just to take you through the agenda for today. So first we'll start with an overview of the different changes that are occurring for implementation oversight, or also referred to as PR reporting for 2024 and beyond. Then we'll specifically zoom in on the pulse check. So we'll go through the content of the pulse check, also the updates to pulse checks in the partner portal. And then we'll go through the next steps and resources. And then, as Darius mentioned, we'll have time for questions and answers. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please add them to the chat and we'll collect them all and address them at the end. Sumiat, over to you.
Thanks, Emily. So as Emily mentioned, we'll be starting the session with an overview of the changes that we're bringing to PR reporting starting this year and beyond. So before we jump into the key changes, we'd like to highlight first how we are delivering the Global Fund strategy through implementation oversight. So we're enhancing PR reporting to enable the availability of high quality data and improving the analysis and use of this data within the Secretariat. So here you'll see a few examples of how we will improve data quality, and they're shown in the blue boxes on the right. Reminder to please mute yourselves, everyone. Thank you. So I won't go through these in detail, but some of these examples include introducing data validation rules to support the PR in catching and resolving errors in your reports before submitting them to the Global Fund, allowing the correction of your programmatic results to ensure that the Global Fund has the most accurate data, reporting through the aggregate data exchange mechanism, which brings information from your national health management information systems directly into your PR reporting forms. And then lastly, reporting at the elementary indicator level to reduce manual data entry and to improve data quality. So as I mentioned, these are just a few examples of what is new in PR reporting, and we will get into each of these changes in more detail throughout the session. So why is quarterly data important? The Global Fund has now strengthened its commitment to data-driven decision-making as it allows for faster reaction, course correction, and problem solving. There is also an increased reporting requirements from the board and donor constituencies, and as such, quality and timely data is now very critical to build the business case for our next replenishment. Here you'll see a quick recap of how the data in the pulse checks are used today in the Global Fund. So first, you'll see that quarterly monitoring and analysis is done on the pulse check data that is submitted by the principal recipient. The pulse check data is then used in reporting at the MEC and executive level at the Global Fund and for corporate KPI reporting, among other important Secretariat reports. And finally, the output of these reports and analyses using pulse check data are used to drive decision-making and, of course, provide timely guidance to our implementers. So now on to the key changes. Here is a high-level summary of the key changes that we are bringing to PR reporting, and we will go through each of these sections in more detail in the upcoming slides. So first, starting with the aligned reporting, all reports are now going to be integrated, which means we have removed any duplicate reporting. So the PR will not be required to report on a pulse check or a PU, and a pulse check and a PUDR at the same time, which means that within an implementation year, you're reporting only 4 reports instead of 6. And this change applies to both Grant Cycle 7 and Grant Cycle 6 grants. On the bottom, we see changes to the system. So we're now enhancing the system and gradually transitioning to online forms. And then lastly, changes on data quality. We're implementing more changes to improve the quality of the data that is submitted by the principal recipient. Now we're zooming into the changes
Yeah, good
around
afternoon.
the aligned reporting
Hello.
rhythm.
Yeah, would you be kind to just repeat that reducing of the from 6 reports to 4 reports?
Yes, Summer, I'll get into that into more detail now. We'll be covering this. But thank you for your question. Great, thank you, Frida. So now all the forms are integrated into a single reporting mechanism, meaning that the data that is previously submitted from a previous report will then automatically flow into your next report. And as Samrat was mentioning, we have now removed 2 pulse checks so that the CTs don't have to report on 2 forms within 1 reporting period. So what that means is going forward, you will report a pulse check in your first quarter, a PU, and then a pulse check, and then lastly a PUDR at the end of the year, after which the Global Fund will then be releasing a performance rating and a performance letter. And just highlighting that that is also a key change in which now the PR can expect a performance letter twice a year, and now we will only be issuing a performance letter at the end of the year. So all grants, GC6, GC7, and grants with C19RM funds will be following this new reporting rhythm. This applies to the high and core portfolios only. As you might be aware, the focus portfolios are only required to report once through the year, through the PUDR. So to balance the need between the need for timely data and PR reporting burden, the number of data points that are required through reporting in the pulse check has been significantly reduced. So this was done by removing the self-evaluation tab from the pulse check, and we will only be requesting data that is required for monitoring grant performance. So this slide provides a visual of which periods the principal recipient is required to provide results for each report. So please note here at the top of the screen, you'll see the submission timelines. These submission timelines remain the same as they are today. So the pulse check, the PR will submit within 35 days of the reporting period end date, the PU within 45 days, and then the PUDR within 60 days. Now, focusing on the scope of the pulse check, this remains the same. The principal recipient will report on programmatic data and financial data. The reporting period on the programmatic data will depend on the indicator accumulation type, and for financial reporting will be cumulative. So just to give another recap, so today, the PR is submitting 6 reports within each implementation year. And as you can see, there is a duplication of reporting where the PR submits a pulse check and a PU at the same time and pulse check and a PUDR within the same reporting period. So now we are removing this duplication. So for a specific grant, the PR is only required to submit 4 reports a year. So you'll see that in the bottom visual. But if you are managing both a Grant Cycle 7 grant and a Grant Cycle 6 grant, which is continuing into 2024, and you also have C19RM funding, you will be required to report another set of reports for that specific grant. So you have 4 for your Grant Cycle 7 and then 4 for your GC6 and or C19 reporting. Moving on to changes in the system. So we're slowly transitioning to the use of online forms for the PUDR and financial closure reports. The pulse check is as it is today. The PR is required to complete the pulse check online. Rita, we can go ahead and click through to the next ones too, if you can, please. Thank you. So for Grant Cycle 7, the PR will access, complete, and submit all reporting using the online form in the portal and the financial closure report as well, which we will provide more details in our info session in June. We are introducing validation rules within the online form to support the PR to submit higher quality reports to the Global Fund. And here we also show that multiple users can work on the online form at the same time, but it's recommended that you don't work on the same section of the form to avoid any data overwriting. And you see at the top here, an Excel will not be provided for the pulse check, but there will be an Excel version of the form for the PUDR so that the PR can use this for data collection and then import it back into the partner portal and then submit the online form as the final submission. And in the middle, you'll see here a screenshot of the online form, how it looks now. So the user experience, the interface has been improved so that reporting can be a little bit easier for the principal recipients. And we'll be showing more of this through our demos later in the presentation. Now passing it back to you, Emily, to discuss the changes on data quality.
Thanks, Sumiyat. Yeah, so if we now focus on the left-hand side of the diagram and the yellow section, I'll take you through the various aspects of data quality that are impacted by this launch. So the first one on the left-hand side is what Sumiyat had just introduced, which is that there will be data validation rules built into the online system. So there's two different types of validation flags. One is a warning and the second one is an error. So a warning flags to the user if the data captured may be incorrect or contains a potential error. In order to clear this warning, you need to provide a justification comment, or you can actually go back and change your data. A warning does not block submission for the report. So if there's warnings, you can still go ahead and submit. An error, on the other hand, will block submission until that the error is corrected. So we'll take you through various examples later of the warnings and errors that you may receive. But these are the two different types of automatic rules that you'll see in the system. These two types of rules help to support right first-time submission by the PR, and as Sumiyat said, they're built into the online system, so they're automatic. Moving to the right-hand side of the diagram for results correction. So from July 2024, results reported in previous reporting periods can be updated or corrected through the online PUDR form. So for example, if you reported results in the Q1 pulse check that you want to update, you can update or correct these reports during the Q2 PU. Updates or corrections, again, can only be made within the same implementation year. Moving forward to another aspect of data quality, and this is again something Sumiyat had mentioned, is ADEX. So you may have heard of ADEX. ADEX is the Aggregate Data Exchange Integration System. And what this does is it takes data from the National Health Management Information System, data for programmatic indicators and supply chain indicators. And through ADEX, this data from the national systems is pushed into a partner portal. So the data submitted via ADEX is populated in the elementary indicator results directly into the online forms. So this saves the PR some manual input for these indicators. If we move forward one slide. So if we focus on the three yellow boxes, just some additional notes on ADEX. So PRs do not need to manually input results into the online form for the data that's available in HMIS. ADEX is a push mechanism only and does not automatically send the results, so this has to be triggered by the PR. And the PRs own the data and they decide when to send it based upon a mutually agreed frequency. So initially, the focus for this is on high impact and core portfolios, and it's being piloted with a small group of countries, but it will be expanded later as the year continues. Moving into the pulse check content specifically, I'll pass it back over to Sumiyat.
Thanks, Emily. So now we'll dive into the details of the programmatic and financial content in the pulse check. So before I start, just a reminder that the self-evaluation tab is no longer going to be there in the pulse check and no longer required. So the scope of the pulse check reporting remains the same. PRs will report their programmatic results and financial data for the relevant reporting periods. So here at the very top, you see the visual of which tabs you can expect to see in your pulse check if you are reporting on a GC7 IP with an HTM grant. So you will see a coverage elementary indicators tab, which is a new one. I'll explain a little bit later. Your coverage indicator tab and 2 tabs on financial reporting. However, if you have a GC6 grant that is going into 2024 beyond, either with HTM funds or C19RM funding, these are the tabs you can expect to see in your pulse check, and this is the requirement for reporting. So, as I was mentioning before, the coverage elementary indicators tab is a new tab within the pulse check, but it's not necessarily a new concept, and I'll explain that a little further. So what are elementary indicators? They are the numerator and the denominator of your standard indicator. So your coverage indicator is constructed of either 1 or 2 elementary coverage indicators, depending on whether your coverage indicator is numerator only or ND percentage indicator. So this coverage elementary indicator tab will be your main tab in which the principal recipient enters data, and the data that is entered in this elementary indicator tab will be automatically constructed into the standard coverage indicator in the coverage indicator tab. So it's possible that an elementary indicator can be used to construct more than one standard coverage indicator. In this case, the principal recipient only needs to enter that data once in this coverage elementary indicator tab. So the benefits of this is that the PR only has to enter data once, which would hopefully help save the principal recipient some time, and it will help to eliminate errors and ensure consistent reporting. So here we have an example of how elementary coverage indicators are constructed into a standard coverage indicator. So I'll start with the example on the right, where you see that your CM1A standard coverage indicator is actually constructed by 2 elementary coverage indicators on the left, your CM1A numerator and your CM1A denominator. So the principal recipient will enter the CM1A numerator and the CM1A denominator in the elementary coverage indicator tab, and your standard CM1A coverage indicator will be automatically constructed in your coverage indicator tab. And then on the left, we have an example in which one elementary indicator, so in this example, the TCS 1.1 numerator, is used in 2 coverage indicators. So it's used in the TCS 1.1 and in the TCS 9. So in this case, you only need to input your TCS 1.1 numerator in the elementary coverage indicator tab once, and it automatically constructs the TCS 9 and TCS 1.1 coverage indicators. So now moving to the coverage indicator tab. So this tab is largely the same, except now most of the fields will be read-only, as because I was mentioning in the elementary indicator tab is the main tab in which you enter data, and in the coverage indicator tab is where you go and view the automatically constructed coverage indicator results. A caveat to this is that your Grant Cycle 7 custom coverage indicators will not have any elementary indicators. So you will report on your custom coverage indicators directly through the coverage indicators tab. And if you're reporting on a Grant Cycle 6 HTM or HTM and C19 grant, you will also be reporting directly in the coverage indicators tab because there is no coverage elementary indicator tab for you to report on. Over to you, Emily, on changes to the financial reporting content.
Thanks, Sumiyad. So if we look at this diagram again, we can see that the financial tabs are in yellow. So the first financial tab that's included in the pulse check is the cash reconciliation tab. So the cash reconciliation captures relevant financial data to calculate the PR cash balance at the end of the reporting period. The overall structure is harmonized across all 4 quarters of the existing PUDR PR cash reconciliation tab. The cash reconciliation tab is replicated in each reporting quarter. It allows for multiple sources of funding to be reported upon, such as HTM funding and C19RM. And there's also a new section on refunds that's been incorporated to address the triangulation variances at the time of the PUDR. So if we look at the screenshot of what you'll see in the online form, you can see that there's a vertical funding source breakdown to split the cash position by funding sources. So on the left-hand side, you will always have the first column be the regular funds for reporting. Then in the middle column, you'll see if you do have C19RM funds, that's where this column for this fund reporting will occur. And then lastly, the totals will be automatically calculated. Here as well, you can still see the vertical breakdown, which will appear. And if we click one more time, you can see that the first part of this section remains the same as has been previously in the cash reconciliation tab. Moving forward, the second part is now broken into a little bit further detail. So the second part has further detail structured where the income is structured instead of an outflow. Moving on. For this, again, we see that there's a vertical breakdown in funding sources, and there's no changes to section 3 of the form. Similarly, for section 4 and 5, there are no changes. Then moving into section B, the bank reconciliation statement balances, we're introducing new lines, line 9.3 and 9.4, which show a variance between the bank statement or bank reconciliation statement and the PR cash balance. So if there is a variance here, it will flag during the validations that we discussed previously. Sorry, if we can just mute. Perfect. And so we'll show, again, these validation rules in more detail later in the presentation. Moving forward to the Open Advances tab. So open advances are the cash outflows for which no corresponding expenditure has been recognized by the PR. So for Q1, Q2, and Q3, these reports have been simplified. And like we saw in the cash reconciliation tab, it's broken down by funding source. And then the detailed reconciliation of open advances is something that will be requested only in Q4. So again, here you see one column for regular funds, one for C19RM funds, and then the total will be automatically calculated. I did notice that we had a few hands that were raised. I would ask if you have questions to please add them to the chat, and we have our financial colleagues online who will answer those questions either now or we'll also address them at the end of the presentation. Sumiat, over to you.
Thanks, Emily. So for the principal recipients that are managing a GC6 grant that have HTM or C19 funds going into 2024 or beyond, the pulse check has now been updated so that you can report on both your HTM and C19 funds within the same form. So here you will see the tabs that you can expect to see in your pulse check if you're managing a GC6 grant that has both HTM and C19 funds going into 2024. So you're required to report on the coverage indicators, the cash reconciliation tab, open advances, and your work plan tracking measures. If you have a GC6 grant that is C19 only, with C19 funds only, you will be only required to report on cash reconciliation, open advances, and work plan tracking measures. So zooming into the work plan tracking measures, within this tab, there are not any changes, I believe. It remains the same as it is today. The PR is required to report the status of the work plan tracking measures on the C19RM funds, and the work plan tracking measures will be pre-populated based on the target dates within this tab. Back to you, Emily, on changes in the system.
Thanks, Sumiat. So if we just go forward one slide, perfect. So this shows the pulse check reporting process. This reporting process remains the same as today, so the same steps for you as the PR. You will receive a notification once you can access the online PC form in the partner portal, and then you will complete and submit the pulse check through the online form in partner portal. The pulse check is still due 35 days after the reporting period end. So now if we move forward, we can go into a little bit more detail on what you'll see in partner portal. So on the landing page, you can click on the Rubik's Cube to access all the applications. Once there, you can click on the PR reporting application. And this will open up a page that shows you the tiles of the various IPs for the grants that you are working on. So the one that you want to complete the report for, you click on, and it will bring you to this page. You can see that there's a chevron status across. So the first check is that the pulse check has been sent to you as the PR, and then in blue is the current status. So we can see in blue that there's the PRs to complete and submit the form. So there's two boxes for two tabs that we've highlighted here. The first is the online form tab. This is where you click to access the pulse check, and it will open in a separate tab. Also, if you're having any difficulties in accessing the pulse check, there is a help tab here, and once you click on that, it will open an email to our country support team. So once the online pulse check opens in a separate tab, this is the view that you'll see. On the left-hand side, you can see the various tabs included in the report that we just covered. In green is the programmatic section, and then in yellow is the financial section. So because this is a GC7 IP, the coverage elementary indicators that Sumiyat has spoken about are included in this online form. If I can just draw your attention to the top right-hand corner, you can see in the blue box, there's a note that says if you're online or if you're offline. So if you're currently offline and not connected to the internet, your data will still save locally. And then once you're back online, this will be uploaded into the system, into the online form. Also, the data is saved automatically, but if you wish to save more frequently, you can always click the save button. And then lastly, just to show on the slide, where you want to provide results, if you just click on the provide results link for each different indicator, then a new window like this will open where you type in your results. Once you type in your results, you can click the close button and the data will automatically save. So now we'll show you a demo video on data entry. Frida, if you would like to share the demo video with us. Thank you.
Welcome to this demonstration where we'll show you how PR users can edit the online pulse check. Please note that any values shown are for demonstration purposes only and do not represent real grant data. I'm logged in as a PR user to the PR reporting page, and I will click on my ongoing pulse check. Once there, I'll click on the online form tab to access the pulse check, and this will open the form in a new tab. There are a couple of important things to note about this page. The icon here on the top right shows me whether the page is currently connected to the internet. If the status shows offline, I can continue working and my data will be stored locally until I connect to the internet again, and then it will save. The page also has an autosave functionality that will save any changes I make as soon as I click out of the cell. I can also click on the save button here to save more frequently. Finally, in order to refresh the page, I can click on the refresh form button here. Now, let's input some data. As a user, I will navigate the form through this menu on the left, where you can see there are two main sections, programmatic and financial. Clicking on the arrows to the left reveals and collapses the tabs beneath each. Note that the Coverage Elementary Indicator tab is only available for Grant Cycle 7 implementation periods and will not be shown for Grant Cycle 6 implementation period pulse checks. I've clicked on the Coverage Elementary Indicator subtab, and I see the list of available indicators. To provide results, I click on the Provide Results link. This brings a pop-up where I can input my results and click Close. Next, I'll navigate to the Coverage Indicator tab and input my results there. This works the same way. For this pulse check under Financial, I have two tabs, cash reconciliation, where I can input my values directly in the form. And open advances that works the same way. I will now exit this pulse check and move to another one that is for grant cycle 6 and has C19RM funds. This is my grant cycle 6 pulse check. I'm going to click on online form to access it. And the first thing to note is that the programmatic section does not have elementary coverage indicators, as this is a grant cycle 6 pulse check, and it does have a section for work plan tracking measures, as this implementation period does have C19RM funds. So I've clicked on the work plan tracking measures section, and I can input the status, along with some comments. The financial tabs work in the same way as we saw for the grant cycle 7 pulse check. Now, once I have finished inputting my data for all the tabs, I will move on to check if I have received any validation errors, which is covered in the next demo. Thanks for following along.
Sumiyat, over to you.
Thanks, Emily. So now that we've seen how the PR enters data into the online form, we're going to walk you through the steps in which the principal recipient can take to validate the data in the online form before submitting this form to the Global Fund. So within each tab in the online form, there is a validation section, which is what you're seeing here on the screen. And there will be a validate button that the PR can click to run the data validations on the data from this specific tab and review the errors and warnings that need to be resolved or justified before submitting. So the screenshot here shows the view of the validation section once the principal recipient has pressed the validate form button, and the PR can then review all of the validation results that the PR must either resolve or justify. In this specific example, this validation section is showing that I have a few errors, warnings on my coverage elementary indicator tab. So then the principal recipient must decide, do I resolve this warning, or is it actually for a good reason I've left this blank, and I can justify that by providing my reason in the justification column that you see there in the right side. So just a recap on what data validation rules are and why they've been implemented. So data validation has been added into the online forms to support the principal recipient in completing the reports by helping prevent data entry errors and to make it easier for the principal recipient to find and resolve errors before submitting the reports to the Global Fund. So this will improve the overall quality of the data that the Global Fund receives. As we presented in the previous slides, there are two types of validation flags you will see in your online form. One is a warning type flag. So this will warn the user that there are some potential issues, and the user will be required to either resolve these issues or to provide a justification comment if the warning needs to be overruled. You can submit your form with warnings if they have been justified. On the right-hand side, we have error type flags, and these flags are required to be resolved and corrected before the PR can submit the form to the Global Fund. So that's the main difference between a warning and an error. So here are three types of validation rules that are implemented in the programmatic tabs of the online form. So below here, we'll see the three types. One is on the missing results validation rule, which warns the principal recipient user in case they've left anything blank in the online form. There are rules that will flag to the principal recipient if they've entered a numerator value that is larger than a denominator value. And then lastly, there are validation rules that are applied across multiple fields to ensure the PR enters accurate data for either interlinked or related indicators. So here you can see some examples of warning type rules on your coverage indicator tab. So the first one, you'll see that it's warning you that there are missing results, either a numerator or a percentage result is missing. If a numerator is greater than a denominator, if this specific numerator, so in this example, the CM2A numerator is more than your CM1A numerator. And you'll see a few more examples of this specific type of validation warning. And here are some errors. So once again, if you have an error type flag, you must resolve and correct before you're allowed to submit the form to the Global Fund. So here we have examples of these error type rules where one denominator should not be equal to another, where one numerator cannot be more than another numerator, and so on and so forth. We will be sharing these slides after this session, so you can review these in more detail as needed. So here are some validation rules on the cash reconciliation tab. So on the financial reporting side, we have both errors and warnings. So some examples of errors here, you'll see that, again, if you've left a value blank, you must enter a number or a 0. This is an error type flag. You must enter comments if specific values are either 0 or if there's a variance that is greater or less than 1. I'd also like to call your attention to the fact that there are also error rules on the document types that are attached. So now when you're submitting your pulse check, you will be required to attach a bank statement or equivalent type document and a bank reconciliation statement in order to be able to submit the pulse check to the Global Fund. And then at the end, you will see 2 warning types of errors. And lastly, we have just one validation rule in the cash advances tab. That is a error type rule, which will tell you if you've left any fields blank. So you will have to go in and either enter a number or a 0. And back to you, Frida, to show us a demo on the data validations.
Welcome to this demonstration where we'll show you how PR users can run validation checks on the data they have input in the online pulse check. Please note the values presented are for demonstration purposes only and do not represent real grant data. I'm logged in as a PR user and I've accessed the cash reconciliation tab on my pulse check. I finished inputting the data and I want to check that I haven't made any mistakes that would trigger an error or warning message. I do that by clicking on the Validate Form button at the top of the page. When I expand the section, I see that I have 3 error messages with the red triangle and 1 warning message with the yellow triangle. The difference between errors and warnings is that the red error messages will block me from submitting. I will need to change the data that is causing the error to resolve it. Yellow warning messages are not necessarily a blocker. I can either change the data causing the warning, or I can input a justification that will allow me to proceed with submitting. In this case, the first message is telling me that for item 9.4, there is a variance and it is mandatory for me to provide a rationale in the comments field under 9.4. I will navigate down to 9.4 and input my comment. Next, I see that the yellow warning message is telling me that a negative value was input into item 5.1, and resolving that requires either a positive value or a justification for the negative value. I will input my justification. The following 2 error messages are telling me that I have not yet attached the bank reconciliation statement and the bank statement. So I will navigate back to my pulse check form and attach them there under the Attach tab. and selecting the language and the document type. And I now see my attached documents listed down here. So I will go back to my pulse check form and refresh. And click the Validate Form button again to ensure that I have resolved all errors and warning messages. I will go ahead and do that for the Open Advances tab as well. You can see that there are no error or warning messages there. And in the Programmatic tabs, the validations work the same way. In this case, you see I have one yellow warning message and one red error message. The yellow warning message is telling me that the numerator should not be more than the denominator on my result. I can either update the value or provide a justification. In this case, I will provide my justification. The red error message is telling me that the indicator HTS5, the numerator cannot be more than the numerator for the indicator TCS-1.1. So I will need to update the value accordingly. I'll scroll down to HTS5. And change the value on the numerator. Once I'm through, I will click again on the Validate Form button. And I see that I've removed the error message and I have only the warning message with my justification, which is enough to proceed. I'll do the same for the remaining Coverage Elementary Indicator tab. And you will see that there are no error messages or warning messages to resolve there. At this point, I am ready to submit, and that is explained in the next demo. Thank you for following along.
And back to you, Emily, to discuss submitting the form to the Global Fund.
Thanks, Sumiyat, and thanks, Frida, for sharing the demo. So you just saw these steps completed in the demo, but I'll just go through them again quickly. So to attach a document, there's an Attach Document tab, which you can click on. Once you're inside that tab, then on the right-hand side of the screen, sorry, Frida, if you can go back, just one slide there. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see the blue Attach Document where you can click and that will open a window. The window that's open allows you to click to upload various files from your computer, so you can select which files you wish to attach. Once attached, you'll see that they show up in the bottom of the screen here. And as shown in the demo video, when you are selecting the document to attach, it'll ask you for the document type and the language as well. So you see all that information summarized here at the bottom of the screen. Moving forward to Submit, in the Submit tab, you'll see an overview of the various tabs and the remaining or outstanding warnings or errors that need to be addressed before you can submit. And now we'll go into another demo, which shows you the submission process.
Welcome to this demonstration where we'll show you how PR users can submit the online pulse check to the Global Fund. Please note the values presented are for demonstration purposes only and do not represent real grant data. I'm logged in as a PR user to my pulse check and I've finished inputting my data on the online form. I've checked my validations and I'm ready to submit. To do so, I click on the Submit tab. This summarizes for me any errors or warning existing for the programmatic and financial sections, as well as any documents that will be attached to my submission. When I expand the programmatic section, you can see both show with the green check mark, which means they're validated and ready to submit. When I expand the financial section, I see that I still have one error on the cash reconciliation. If I try to submit anyway, by pressing Submit Form to the Global Fund, and Submit Form to the Global Fund, I will receive this red error message at the top telling me that I still have a data quality issue. Now, I see at the bottom of the financial section that I need to attach the cash reconciliation statement. And to do so, I'll click on the Attach tab and attach my bank reconciliation statement. I'll select language and the document type and click Save and Close. I see that my document has shown up here, and I'll go back to the Submit tab. Press again Submit Form to the Global Fund. And you'll see that I've now received a message that submission is successful and the status has changed to Global Fund to validate. Thank you for following along.
Thanks, Frida. So the last slide that we want to show you today, or the last slide on the pulse check content, is on the notifications that you will receive from the system. So you can see the notifications that go to the PR in yellow, and also the PR and CT in yellow, and the PR and the CCM in black. Again, I won't go into this slide in detail, but you'll receive the slides after the presentation, and you can go through and have a look. If you have any questions right now, feel free to add them to the chat, and we'll get to them shortly. Sumiyat, over to you.
Thank you, Emily. Now on to next steps and resources. So today we're holding the information session and Q&A on the changes made to the pulse check. Next Thursday, we will hold the same session in French for our French-speaking countries. And the information sessions on changes to the PU and the financial closure report will be held sometime in June. And the changes to the PUDR will be held sometime in November. We will be confirming the date and timing of these sessions once they are confirmed. We're also in the process of updating our PR reporting resources with the changes to the pulse check, and we will communicate to you when these resources are ready for your use. Great. So that concludes our presentation on the key changes to implementation oversight and PR reporting in 2024 and beyond, and the updated pulse check. We will now be moving to our question and answer session portion of the session. So please feel free to continue putting your questions in the chat, and we'll continue answering them live. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sumiyat. And we have been collecting questions throughout the presentation, so we'll take you through some of the questions that we've already been collecting now. I do see that there are some hands raised, so people continue to raise their hands. If it's possible for you to put your question in the chat, it'll be great because then we can organize the answers. I do realize it may not be possible if you're on a mobile device or not in a situation right now where you can have kind of easy access to a keyboard to enter your question in the chat. So if that's the case, feel free to keep your hand raised and we'll try to call you in at the end so you can share your question with us verbally. So the first questions, Darius, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Emily. And yeah, big appreciation to everyone for the active participation in the chat. I'm going to try with my colleagues to do our best to answer all of your questions. If we can't get to all of them, we'll make sure that they're included in the slides that are shared. So the first question, will Global Fund consider the pulse check data and the grant rating? So no, the pulse check data will not be in the grant rating, right? So the grant rating will be based on the Q4 report for the PUDR submission. Also for the Q2, there'll be no grant rating. There'll be an achievement percentage achievement calculation. So the ratings are just at the end of the year based on the PUDR. The second question, does that mean that C19RM and GC7 reporting is integrated? No, they are separate because they're in separate IPs. So we'll be reporting, PRs will be reporting each IP separately. So if you have a GC6 IP with C19RM and a GC7 IP with HIV, TB, and malaria, you'll be reporting two sets of reports. For the PUDR submission timelines, will the country under COE have extra flexibility? So the flexibility remains exactly the same as before. So no changes to that versus today. Question 4, I'm going to pass that to one of my finance colleagues to answer the question on the semi-annual, the PU, and how the annualized budget will factor into that. Over to you, Fadil or Bogi.
Thank
Thanks,
you very
Fadil.
much for the question. So basically, there will, as Darius mentioned, so there will be no semi-annual evaluation or assessment of performance. So which means that the expenditures that are going to be reported at the half year will show the progress that is made towards the annual budget. And if you're in year 2 and year 3, it is the cumulative progress against the cumulative budget as of that date. So there will be no proration of budget to complete the half year. It will always be showing, you know, the target, how much you have achieved against the years and the cumulative progress. Thanks.
Thanks, Fadil. On to the next question. Will there be 4? What will be the cycle for 4 reporting? So if I understand the question correctly, it's just how do the 4 reports look throughout the year? So what will happen is there's the Q1 pulse check that will be shared very shortly in early April. There's the PU that will be as of the end of June, the pulse check 3 that will be as of the end of September, and the PUDR as of the end of December. Now, this is for the grants, obviously, that are starting on January 1st, but the same applies for grants whenever they do start. So we'll be 3 months into the grant or the IP start, there'll be the pulse check, 6 months in, there'll be the PU, and so on and so forth. And also, obviously, for year 3, the last report that's there is not the PUDR, but it's the last PU, so a slightly different subset of information. I understand the PU will pull information from previous pulse checks. Will the pulse check include the information from the previous PU, given that the pulse check has less indicators than the PU? So just to remind everyone, the pulse check is a subset of all the indicators that are in the grants signed performance framework. And those for the pulse checks are the ones that PRs will be reporting on. So the answer is basically in the pulse check, in the Q1 pulse check, that we'll be working on very soon. There's no previous information that's shown. But as of the Q2 pulse check moving forward, or Q2 report, you'll see the Q1 reports will be visible and editable on the programmatic side. In Q3, you'll see the prior data for Q1 and Q2 will be visible. And then for the Q4, you'll see all the prior submitted information on the programmatic side. And again, you can make corrections if there were data errors. And I think that there was a question about, well, I'll cover it later then. In number 7, okay, will the targets be maintained in the pulse check template or considerations for quarterly targets be made? I'm going to pass this to one of my colleagues from Mecca. Suman, could you please jump in on this question? Okay, so I'll try my best to answer the question, but yes, in the pulse checks, there's no targets shown. PRs will see the targets. PRs will be able to see the targets for the semester as a reference, but there's no quarterly targets. On question 4, data validation rules, how will it work for custom indicators? Validation rules will apply to all indicators. And I think do we have the list of indicator? Well, I think we have the list of validation rules.
Yeah, we have a full list of validation rules. So most of the validation rules are included in the slides, but we'll double check before we send around the slides to everyone that all the validation rules are included. And it seems like our Mecca colleague may not be online at the moment or might have been pulled away. So we'll make sure that we verify the answers with her as well.
Yeah. Okay, question 9 on the next page, please. Does it mean we have to verify and revise our data in the following reports? So there's no requirement to revise data. It's a new functionality that's being added that you can revise previously submitted information. I think I just want to make sure on this one that it's clear, though, it's within the given IP year, right? So we can revise data that's been submitted in the Q1 pulse check, the Q2 pulse check, the Q3, or sorry, the Q1 pulse check, the Q2 PU, the Q3 pulse check. But once the IP year is closed, after the PUDR is submitted, the data is locked, and that's the data that's used for the ratings and used for other reporting purposes internally. For the pulse, so question 10, for the pulse checks, is it just a subset of indicators still, or will it be all the indicators in the grant? No, it'll be a subset as today. So there's a different list of indicators that will be there, but it's approximately similar to the list today, but it's not exactly the exact same ones, but a subset. How will the custom indicators work in the coverage, in the elementary coverage indicator tab? So custom indicators will be pre-populated in that tab, and the results for these indicators will be reported. So there's they will be reported in the coverage indicator tab, not in the elementary indicator tab for the custom ones. Question number 12.
Sorry, Darius, to interrupt.
Yeah.
I see that Suman is now online. Do we want to ask her the question we had on the previous slide, I think?
Sure, I think it was number 7, if we want to go back.
Mm.
Hey, Suman, if you're online and if you can hear us and come in for question number 7.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, good. So there was no need for so can you please start again? So semester targets will be visible in the pulse check template, and these will be just for reference because pulse check is quarterly reporting and we are not setting any quarterly targets here. So the semester targets on the elementary page, there will be no targets visible because there are no quarterly targets. These will be visible on the constructed coverage indicators tab for reference.
Okay, I think thanks for that, Suman. I think we left off at 12, if I'm not mistaken. Let's
It was 12, yeah. Yeah, I think we covered 11, that the custom indicators are not included in elementary indicator tab, but will be reported in the coverage indicator tab. And I think now we're on 12.
Yeah. Okay, so for C19RM, the question, so it's only for the grants that have in their performance framework quarterly work plan tracking measures that are required to report in the pulse check. And just a reminder, the PR self-evaluation tab will no longer be included in any of the pulse checks. Number 13, please. Thank you. I'm going to pass this question to Fadil. Please, if you can jump in for the next couple there that are finance related.
Bogi, rather.
Or Bogi. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. So for the grant, for where we have 4 grants or multiple grants using the same bank account, basically the Section 9 will take care of this situation. The PR will submit and attach a bank statement as well as a bank reconciliation in their PR reconciliation tab. And if there is any variance between either the bank statement and the cash balance in Section 5 or the bank reconciliation and the cash balance in Section 5, there is a calculated field with a mandatory commentary section where the PR can further detail the explanation.
Thanks, Bogi. And I think if you could also cover question 14, please.
Yeah, so I'll cover 14. So basically, when the key message here is that when we look at the cash reconciliation, so you can expect to see the same model or the same format of cash reconciliation with exactly the same lines, whether you are reporting for a PU, a pulse check, or a PUDR. Now, what you also can expect is that the expenditure reporting is not going to change. In terms of the half-yearly PU and the yearly PUDR, except that we will communicate on that when there is the rollout that is coming later during the year. There is a lot of alignment. There is a lot of simplification in terms also of the data that is expected to come. But we'll leave that for now, and I'm sure Darius and his team will hold the different info sessions, just like this one, when we roll out the PU and PUDRs. Thank you.
Thanks, Fadil. Could you also come in on number 16 about lead implementers and how they're accounted for?
Yeah, so lead implementers, depending on whether they are exactly sitting at the same level as the PR or SR. So usually there would still be a PR and the lead implementer would be accounted as an SR, just like any other SR. So in this case, all the advances that are provided to the lead implementers should also be accounted as such. And the reason is simple, is that when we look at the level of the PR, any outflows that has gone out, whether to a lead implementer or to a sub-recipient or to a supplier, is either has gone for the payment of expenditures or has gone for the payment of advances. So until and unless these are finalized, or expense, they will remain as open advances, even for a lead implementer. Thanks.
Thanks, Fadil. I'll take number 15. I get the easy ones and then I pass the hard ones off to other people. So on 15, the pulse check will be fully online as it is today. So for all data entry and submission, after the successful passing through the data validation warnings and errors, the submission will all be done online as today. Slide number 17, please. So same answer as today. There's no Excel version for the pulse check. And then number 18, I'm going to pass it back to Suman on work plan tracking measures. So Suman, if you could please come in on number 18 and number 19, please.
Okay. So the work plan tracking measures for 319 RM grants are to be reported on a quarterly basis. Whereas in GC7, the work plan tracking measures are set on a semestral or an annual frequency. So for GC7 IPs, the work plan tracking measures will be reported at Q2 and Q4 as per the reporting frequency in the performance frameworks. And only the work plan tracking measures in the 319 RM grants will be required to be reported on the quarterly frequency in the past.
Thank you, Suman. And number 19 too, if you could please take that one.
Sure. So here the concern is about the KP indicators and how these will be measured and across different countries with the different measurement methods and mechanisms in the countries. So just want to clarify that the KP indicators are not included in the quarterly reporting. These will not be part of the pulse checks. And these will be reported as per the reporting frequency agreed in the performance framework and as per the measurement methodology agreed in the performance framework.
Thank you, Suman. Now number 20, please. And thank you for our folks that are continuing to put questions in the chat. Please continue to do so, and we'll try our very best to answer them. So there's a question about need to access the portal to complete the form submission on the programmatic and on the financial side. So I would just encourage you to look at who has access now as editors and submitters. And if your current list is not appropriate, please reach out and we can update the GED related to the grant entity data related to this, so that you have the right editors and submitters. Will there be a ready to submit? What you can do prior to submitting, you'll see you can press the data validation button, and if all the data validation warnings are addressed and the errors are cleared, or if there are no errors, then the form is ready to submit. Then you can pass it to the actual submitter, who pushes the final button to submit it. Question 22. If during the PU submission, the PR realizes that there's some discrepancy with the pulse check data, can we correct it? Yes, this is something that we're building in, starting this year that as of the PU and the PUDR, you can correct prior submitted data. And you can correct it also in the periods where the correction happened, right? Not just adjusting it in future reporting periods. So if there was a mistake in the Q2, you can correct that as part of the annual submission. 23, these are Bogi or Fadil, if you can please come in on question 23.
Yes, so the PR reconciliation sheet or the tab, it will be the same for all 4 reports throughout the year. So it's the same layout.
Great, thanks. On the data validation warnings, so any guidance on justifications, I think try your best to explain why, and if you're please try your best to explain why, as much justification as is relevant for the particular warning. Some examples of regional grants, I suppose we're still reporting annually. So I'd say as today, for whoever is reporting on pulse checks, they'll continue to report on pulse checks. So for high impact and core, and if there's any accommodations for specific grants, those will continue as per today. Question 26. Yes, so for all reporting moving forward, the new reporting system process will apply. So as of Q1, when the pulse check is being submitted, anyone that's relevant for a pulse check will be reporting it. But if you have a grant that is on a different cycle than the standard cycle, there could still be, for example, if a PUDR is due at the end of March for a GC6 grant, that PUDR will follow the old format and process up until the PU and PUDR comes online later in the year. So we're going live with the pulse check first, and then the PU coming in June, and the PUDR in the fall. Number 27. So it's not mandatory to correct pulse check data. You can correct it if it's necessary. Number 28, sorry, I'm just reading through the question. So for the pulse checks, yes, so pulse checks is still a subset of indicators, and there are no quarterly targets. But you can revise the quarterly data. Number 29.
No, I think there's a misunderstanding here. Yeah.
When is the Q1 pulse check expected to be submitted? The Q1 pulse check for those that started on January 1st, 2024, you'll get a friendly email in early April to start submitting the new pulse check. Can we share the list of pulse check indicators to be included under GC7? Okay, it's in the slide deck. Now, just to note, it's as long as a grant signed PF has one of those indicators, then it would be reported, right? It needs to, both need to be true. It needs to be on that list, and it needs to be in a grant signed PF. The pulse check reporting style focused on aggregate. I'm gonna just skip over question 31 because I don't know how to answer that in this call, so we can come back with an answer afterwards, unless my programmatic colleagues want to jump in and answer 31. On 32, on budget reprogramming, again to Bogi or Fadil to please come in on the budget reprogramming question.
So for the pulse checks, the Q1 and Q3, we will not have budget and expenditure related data. It's only cash reconciliation, so it's indifferent for those. For PUs and PUDRs, we will have the expenditures and the variance analysis for PUDR. And for those, the budget will be, as always, the latest approved, but we will get to this when we do the info session for these reports.
Thanks, Bogi. And I see the CRAC team has put in the answer for 31. Yes, so it doesn't always align with WHO reports. The timelines don't always align, but it's aligned to the national reporting cycles. Number 33. For regional grants, are we going to have pulse check? So I think the short answer is, if today you're reporting on a pulse check, you'll continue to report on a pulse check. High impact and core countries report on the pulse check. Please share the list of indicators included. It's in the slides that will be shared and posted online as soon as possible. In case of more than one PR, will the pulse check be PR specific or national, like the PU/PUDR? I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if
It's like Bogi.
Bogi, if you want to come in on that.
It will be grant specific. So if there is one grant number, there will be one report. It doesn't matter how many PRs or co-PRs are there. It's the same as always.
Thanks, Bogi. And it looks like, Suman, did you want to come in as well? I noticed you have unmuted yourself.
Maybe which question?
Oh, I didn't know if you wanted to, which question was it? If we go back, I think? Or no, sorry, 33. No, which one?
Yeah.
We lost where we were.
35.
35, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in case of more than one PR, the pulse check will be PR specific only. It's not national. It is same as currently. The PRs will report by grant and for not at the national level. So this reporting, whether it is pulse check, PU or PUDR, is PR specific.
Yeah. On question 36, the indicators that are in the pulse check are included in the slide deck.
I can take that.
Yeah, please go ahead, Suman.
No, there is not all indicators included in the PF are included in the pulse check. Pulse check will include a subset of indicators from the PF, and this will be a predefined set of indicators. Depending on if those indicators are included in the PF, then only they will be included in the pulse check. So there is a mandatory set. Plus, there is a possibility for country teams to add any additional indicators if they want to be reported on a quarterly basis. But that will be in discussion with your country teams.
Thanks, Suman. 37, clarification for the PU. Is it the same as before? So I think the PU will have a detailed information session in June where we'll go through all of the Changes with the PU, and then again later on in the year for the PUDR. PR reconciliation template the same. Bogi or Fadil, do you want to come in on the triangulation question?
Yes, so the reconciliation, as we said, it will be the same, but the triangulation will only be in the PUDR. So all those other elements that are part of the triangulation, like advances, commitments, and obligations, they are in the PUDR.
No, let me come in here. So basically the question was, I think, referring to the current PUDR template, where the cash reconciliation section goes from item 1 to item 10. So basically, what we are revamping in terms of the cash reconciliation section is that it will stop at the ending cash balance. So whatever you saw in the PUDR in its current version, where you had an open advance section and then you had below it the financial commitments and obligations, and then the ineligibles and also the triangulation within the same sheet. So this is no longer going to apply for any other reports. So the cash statement is exactly as Emily showed you earlier in the presentation, and it goes from opening balance to cash inflows, cash outflows, adjustments, and then the closing balance. And that is the same cash reconciliation statement that will be applicable across all the different reports. Thanks.
I'm going to continue to appreciate all the questions that are coming in the chat. So thank you for that, and please don't be shy. Please continue adding them, and we'll do our very best to reply. When does the new reporting system start? Question 39. It starts in early April. So the first reports that will be coming out with this new reporting system, or enhanced reporting system, because the Pulse Check exists already today and it is online, but the changes that we've discussed earlier today will start in early April. So you'll get an email notification when it's ready to begin. And question number 40, will there be guidance on how to fill in the forms? Yes, there'll be two sorts of guidance. There'll be a guidance, an instruction document on more of the content related questions, kind of cell by cell, explaining how to fill it in if there are questions. And there'll be a partner portal guide with screenshots, with all the demos that you saw here. And some more to help you to submit your successfully submit and on time successfully submit your Pulse checks. Number 41. Which reports are LFAs expected to review? So the LFAs are not reviewing the Pulse checks as today, and more communication will come out on the process for the PU and the PUDR as part of our June info session. So stay tuned for that. Comprehensive list of data validation flags and rules. It's in the slide deck. So please take a look when we post it online. Joint indicators between PRs who is responsible for putting them in the Pulse Check. Both PRs will be reporting these indicators if they're included in their grant performance framework. Ending cash balances, will they be theoretical or per the bank statement? Bogi, please come in.
Sure. So the ending cash balance in section 5, it will be, as always, the theoretical, the calculated cash balance. And then there will be the section 9, where the reconciliation and the bank statements will be provided by the PR, which is where we compare theoretical balances to those.
Thank you. 45. Do we consider vendors also as lead implementers? I think that might be a question still for you. They're considered suppliers, so I'll just take that if that's an easy one. And you see the answer there on the screen. If we have a GC7 HTM TB grant and a GC6 C19 RM grant, will we have to submit separate reports? Yes, because they're in two separate IPs, they will need to be submitted separate from one another. There's a follow-up question. Okay, so I think the theoretical question on the bank statement was answered earlier. And I think that the team is doing their best to add these questions in as they come. So maybe we just pause for a moment, see if there are more questions coming in the chat. Let's see if we can get over 50.
I do notice that there are a few hands that are raised, so I'm not sure if maybe while we're waiting to see if there's some more questions in the chat that we can invite these colleagues to come in. So the first hand I see, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing the name wrong, but I think it's Kaya. Kaya, if you would like to unmute yourself and come in. And if not, if it's just an old hand, it's okay. We can always skip over it and move forward. Kaya. Okay, I see there's also a hand from, it looks like someone who's logged in as Brack, B-R-A-C. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question, please feel free to do so. Or if it's just an old hand or an accidental hand, then no problems at all. Okay, and then the third hand I see is Semrat. Semrat, if you would like to unmute yourself and come in and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much for providing the chance. And I need to clarify a few things that I was just listening your communication so far. I just wanted to first get to understand that there will be from now in first quarter it's going for the pulse check, second quarter it is coming for the PU, and third quarter it's coming again pulse check, and fourth quarter is finally PU come DR. My submission is here that if there are 2 pulse check we are giving, and at the end of the time when the last quarter we are submitting the PUDR, then what is the methodology is following for the cash reconciliation? Because as I thinking, when 4 quarters simultaneously going for the pulse check, and according to the along with the PU and PUDR, at that time it could be easier to calculate the cash reconciliations, but now it may be there will be some problem for, as there is 1 pulse check and missing of the another.
Thanks, Samrat. Bogi or Fadil, would you like to come in and answer that one?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So basically the opening cash balance, whether you are doing a Q1 pulse check or a Q2 PU, a Q3 pulse check, or a Q4 PUDR. So the opening balance will always be the opening balance as of the last PUDR reporting date. So if you are doing, for example, the Q1 of GC7, so your opening balance will be 0 because there is no previous opening balance as your financial closure has not yet been done. So what it means is that Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 will build up cumulatively on each other, so that, for example, the disbursements that you will record in Q2 will be the disbursement from the start of the year, so from 1st of January till 30th of June. And same thing when you're doing the pulse check for Q3, it will be cumulative from 1st of January to 30th of September. Now, when you're going to come to your PUDR, so it will be the expenditures, the cash inflows and outflows for the whole year. And then once you have this ending cash balance, next year, when you're going to start your Q1 next year, it will be that cash balance which you had at the end of that period that is going again to be the opening cash for the whole of the year 2 and so on until you reach closure. I hope I have answered your question.
Yeah, it's good to hear, but perhaps there is another query still remains that suppose just like as now the end of the current grant cycle and the implementation of the next grant cycle, this is a crossing over. So now whenever that suppose that at the end of this current grant cycle, the PU we will be receiving or PUDR we will be receiving for right now, this will be the showing the closing balance of the first current grant cycle and the closing cash reconciliations also over there. But whenever final financial closure report will be hitted to us, at that time, what is the going to be the, because in between of that 6 months buffer period, we will have to already hitted already 1 pulse check for them also. That is the my main area of the query.
No, absolutely. And again, it is a very pertinent question. So until you have the communication from the Global Fund about what has been the closing cash balance that is retained and validated for the previous period, so for GC7, you will still continue to keep 0 as opening cash. And that is also, there are some of the PRs that will still have C19 RM implementation ongoing. And as you know, cash is cash. And when you report, so until you have that final letter from the Global Fund confirming to you what is the closing cash balance for the previous IP, so any report that you do for the next reporting period will still have that opening balance of nil until you are grounded in terms of the amount. And then, because the reports are cumulative, so it starts from the first period to the next. So when you will have your Q4 report by then, so you can then include your opening cash balance. And again, the idea is that when you are accumulating your outflows and your inflows and all your adjustments, so that ending cash balance which you will have, let's say at the end of December, will be complete with that FCR cash balance from the previous cycle as well.
Yeah, now it's quite nicely understood. One of my last queries that as I was seeing that in the format of the PUDR, there it was showing one thing side, that is opening advance. It's a new tab is going to be inserted into the pulse check. My question is, what is going to be about the commitments? Because previously there was the tab of the commitments also. Now it has been either it has been eradicating or it has been also there, and moreover to that opening advance is there.
No, so the commitments are not included in the pulse check simply because commitments relate to expenditures. So let me just briefly recap. So when you are doing the pulse check, so the idea for us is to have a situation or the cash situation. And as you know, open advances basically refer to cash outflows that have happened for which no corresponding expenditure has been recognized. Whereas commitments, on the other hand, are expenditures that have been incurred for which no payments has yet been made. So you will see that the relevance of commitment is important when we come to expenditure reporting. So which is why you will see that in the Q4 report, because that's where it will also affect the triangulation. So when you're doing a pulse check or a PU, we are not yet concerned with the details of the commitments. And again, the commitments has their importance when it comes to the forecast of the cash outflows for the next reporting period, because basically they will, in addition to your budget, form part of the activities that need to be paid for. So if you just look at the cash reconciliation, we are only concerned with open advances because these are also potentially cash that will have the propensity to be used by either the PR, the SRs, or the vendors that we have in the grant architecture. Thanks.
Okay, but how then it will be impacted to the forecast section?
That will come when we will roll out the PUDR. You will see that. I don't know when precisely we will have the session, but it will be tackled when we talk about PUs and PUDRs.
Okay,
Back to
thanks,
you, Darius.
Video. Thanks, Video, and thank you, Samara, for your engagement and your questions. Really appreciate you coming in and asking those questions. I see we do have a few more questions that have been added to the chat, so I'll hand it over to Darius to go through those in the slides, and then we also have another hand, and so I'll go back to the hand after we address the ones on the screen. Thanks.
Yes, so on question 48, hear you loud and clear. It's well noted and considered. There will be an Excel version to allow for data import to bring in the data into the online form for the PU and the PUDR. The pulse check will remain fully online as today. For 49, we will share these slides. I think I saw the link that was put in the chat, so they will be live very soon. There you can see the demos. There you can see the screenshots that Emily and Sumyat had shared with you earlier. So all that information will be there. And as soon as the partner portal manual and the pulse check instructions are finalized, they'll also be at that exact same link on the external website. There's a question about payments paid directly by Global Fund for WAMBO. So Fadil or Bogi, if you can come in on that one, please. About when the expenses are recognized for those WAMBO order payments.
All right, so let me attempt this one. So basically, the expenditure recognition criteria has remained the same. So it is only when goods or services are received that they are actually accounted for as such. Now, when there are payments which are made, like for example, payments which are made to WAMBO, so they basically refer to the payments that have gone to the suppliers, but these payments do not constitute expenditure if, as of the cutoff date, so as of the reporting period, these goods have not been received in country. So the correct treatment for that is it will still constitute an inflow to the grant because it is as if the Global Fund had disbursed to the PR this amount. but it will also be an outflow because it is exactly like the payment has been made on behalf of the PR to the supplier. So when you look at your cash position, it will be a zero effect. But then these payments, they constitute an open advance at the level of the WAMBO, and it is only when you receive the goods in country that you will recognize these expenditures. Now, we all know that WAMBO payments are made in relation to orders which are in the system, and at times you will see that the payments differ from the amount of the order in the system, and that is simply because payments are made in progress. Like, for example, the standard is that 80% of the value of the goods is paid to the supplier when it leaves the manufacturer's warehouse. And then the remaining 20% is paid when the goods are received in country, and then are added to these all the PSM costs like freight, insurance, and so on. So anytime you see a payment which has been made, and you will also receive from your country teams the different payments that have made, the payment listing, from where you can actually see in relation to what order these payments have been made. And again, the key message here is that until the goods are received in country, these are not considered as expenses. Thank you. Back to you, Darius.
Thanks, Fadil. I do see that we have a hand up again. It looks like Samarat, you have your hand raised, so I just wanted to check if that's an old hand or if you have a new question and would like to come in.
Yeah, my question is in this concern is that the pulse check is going to be the online from right now. And as we are seeing that right now from that, whether pulse check is going to be the online for only for the PR1 or for the lead implementer also. Because we are the NCVBDC, that is, we are the lead implementer on behalf of the PR1, that is the Ministry of Finance. Who is going to submit it online? Who have the access?
Yes, let me
It will
take
be the
that. So
PR submitter and editor. Sorry, Darius, go ahead.
no, just, I mean, if there are any accommodations for grants as of today, it will follow the same process in the future. So if there's specific circumstances in particular grants, that will follow a process similar to today. On the LFA question, will they continue to review the PUs? Yes, there still will be a review for the PU and PUDRs, but there will be some changes coming, and those will be shared in much more detail during the PU info session in June and later on in the year for the PUDR session. So stay tuned for that. But again, the pulse check has no LFA review similar to today. Maybe we just have a last call for questions in the chat. Please take a moment if you have any further questions, or raise your hand if anyone else has any further questions, and we can address them. I'll just give it maybe one more minute, and then we can close the Q&A part. There's a question, I'm just reading them straight from the chat. When is the Q1 pulse check due? It follows the same timelines of 35 days after the end of the reporting period. Great, then I'm going to close the Q&A session. I really am impressed with the quality of the questions, the detail, the engagement on this. So a real big thank you to all the PRs who asked questions, and to my colleagues who gave answers. So thanks so much. I'm going to pass it back to Emily and Soumya.
Thanks, Darius. And yeah, I just want to echo Darius's sentiments. Thank you so much for your engagement. We understand that depending on where in the world you are, it might be pretty late in your day by now, so we really appreciate you joining us. We will be sharing the full presentation with all the answers to your questions online as soon as possible. And I think Alistair also put in the chat that the demo videos will also be available on the website, so you can go and view those at any time. That's all from me, but Sumiyat, any last reflections from you?
Thanks, Emily. No, just to say thank you to everyone again for your participation and the great questions. Thank you so much, and wishing everyone a lovely, lovely day.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.